All right, we're here. Cool. Get started in 1 minute. All right, we're here. Cool. Okay, welcome to our second day of our live Q&A sessions with CMU students for the CMU CS Academy project. So before we get started today, I just wanted to give you all some ground rules or what to expect during this hour session. So our student team, a few members are here with us this morning. We are going to just go through some questions about what it's like to be a CMU student, what it's like to work on the CS Academy project. We'd love to hear some questions too from classrooms. So if you're a classroom teacher watching this, please make sure to post some questions from your students in your classroom in the chat around those topics, and we'll definitely get to them for you. But before we get started with that, I'd like to just have everyone on the call introduce themselves. So I'm Erin Colley. I'm the program manager of CMU CS Academy, and I'm here today with Harleen, Maya, and Maggie. Harleen, why don't you share a little bit about yourself first?
Hi, I'm Harleen. I'm a senior in computer science with a minor in language technologies. I've been working on the team since I was a freshman, so about 2.5 years now. I originally worked on content creation as well as content testing, and now I work on the development team. I'm originally from outside New York in Stamford, Connecticut. Yep.
Thanks, Maya. Why don't you go next?
Yeah, hi, I'm Maya. I'm a junior at CMU studying math. And I've been on the team for almost a year now. So I started in January 2020, I think. I work on the content creation team. And yeah, I'm from Bangalore, India.
Thanks. And Maggie?
Hi, I'm Maggie. I am also a junior at CMU. I'm majoring in computational biology and doing a minor in linguistics. I've been on the team since November 2018, and I've been mainly working on the content creation team. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. So while we wait for a few questions to start popping up in the chat, I'm just going to start out with one that's, what's your favorite part about working on the CS Academy team? Harleen, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so working on CS Academy is super exciting as a student because other than like classes, we don't really have a chance to work on something that's very real world and actually facing customers or anything like that, other than in internships possibly. But working on CS Academy means that you get to 1 week, maybe you create an exercise in content creation, and then in a couple weeks, students are using that exercise and are actually learning from that exercise. And you get to actually see like in real time how many students are using it, what their feedback is about it from teachers. And it just makes it really exciting to be able to like watch what you do show up on the site and be affecting people across the world now, since we are kind of everywhere now. And on the dev team, it's kind of cool to be able to implement features, and then these be features that like have been asked on Freshdesk are like support tab for teachers, and then be able to implement them, and then seeing that they're using it and they are happy to have that new feature. So I just think it's really exciting to be able to see those kinds of results and also have practice in a kind of development process of like testing and talking to the design team and stuff like that. It's like really good practice for I guess real world jobs.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I think for me too, it's just amazing. It's like super rewarding to kind of get to use your coding skills to come up with something creative and then see it show up and see that people are actually using it and feel like you're, contributing something good using your technical skills, which is really nice. And I think for me, it's just really helped me push my creative boundaries being on the content creation team. And I've had to kind of think outside of, think a lot outside of the box, which has been really fun.
Yeah, very similar to Harley and Maya. I just really enjoy working on a team and like having interactions and collaboration with everybody on the team. And also it's a great creative outlet to like make something, create something, and have students like actually work on it and get excited about it. So
I do have like one more thing to add as well. The fact that the whole team are students for the most part, like other than Aaron, Evan, and Elliot and Austin, like we are all students, like we're all full-time students, and we're making like the content, we're making the changes on the dev site. Like there's so much student involvement in the project. Like it just makes it so amazing to be able to make decisions as students and that decision just be like accepted. And that's really cool to be able to have that kind of impact.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And kind of building off of that, how did you find out about the project? Like, how did you get involved and why did you want to be part of the work that we're doing?
Yeah, so when I was a freshman, I was trying to figure out what to do for my freshman summer because I didn't have an internship, but I was staying on campus to take a class. And it was recommended to me by someone else to apply to work on CS Academy, which was in its very early stages. So it was very much a startup vibe at that point. And I've been always really interested in education technology. So I've done a lot of like tutoring. I work on a project called Tech Knowledge where we teach Python to middle schoolers using CS Academy. And so working on it that summer was really exciting to kind of get involved in because then I got to actually have an impact on like K-12 CS rather than just being able to just tutor them, actually creating a curriculum and working on something that's going to be like long lasting and really helpful for them.
For me, so I had a really close friend who was working on the team. And so I kind of knew about CS Academy and the work that CS Academy was doing through my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, I was a TA for a Python course. And towards the end of it, and a lot of TAs who TA'd that course also worked on the team. So I think I just got to know about it a lot more. And for me, I think it was really interesting because as I TA'd, I think I got to directly interact with students. And it was just really cool to see how like different problems cater to like different levels and like, different students and stuff like that. And to like actually be a part of a team that like made that content, I felt like that like switch was really exciting for me. So yeah, and then I applied and yeah, I'm here now. So that's how I found out.
yeah, I think when I found out about CS Academy when it was like freshman fall, like by the very end of it, like around November. I was also taking the course, the Intro to Programming, that Python course, and I just like noticed that CS Academy is making content so that more students can enjoy programming and start to learn programming, which was what I was doing at the time. I was like, I wish more people can enjoy it. So I just like applied and got accepted on the team. It was amazing.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So now I'm going to shift over to just a little bit about your life here at CMU. So what are some of your favorite things that you do at CMU, other than CS Academy, of course?
Yeah, okay, other than CS Academy, I guess that takes one of the things that I really like to do. I really like TAing. So I'm a teaching assistant for our AI course. I've also been a teaching assistant for a functional programming course and intro to concepts, which is proofs and mathematical proofs that the math majors and CS majors have to take as freshmen. I really enjoy TAing because it is a way to kind of connect to the people that are a bit younger and being able to kind of have an impact on their learning the same way that TAs had an impact on my learning. I also really like to play volleyball with some friends. So there's a lot of recreational volleyball that happens on campus. And before Corona, we used to play a lot on this court that's right near the CS building, which was kind of perfect because you could, between classes, just go and play for a bit. So that was really fun. And there's also just a really lot of fun stuff to do in Pittsburgh. So getting to like kind of go around and explore on the weekends is something that I'm happy to have done the past 4 years.
Yeah, I can go. So for me, I guess my main commitment outside of like academics and also CS Academy has been a cappella. So I'm part of like an a cappella team called CMU Sounds, and we're an all-female identifying team, and we do like fusion music. So we do South Asian music and Western music, and it's been pretty fun. And and it's been pretty cool because we've got to like travel across the US and compete, and it's been really interesting, and also perform on campus and off campus. And I would say that that's like something that really helps me de-stress and just connect to, music and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, so my answer would also be pretty similar. I've been TAing before in the past, and it's amazing. I think so CMU has a really big undergraduate student TA culture. And aside from that, there's a botanical garden around CMU, and there's also a park. I just like go there and have a walk and hang out with my friends. And sometimes I like before COVID, we also went to musical performances. Pittsburgh is actually a pretty big theater city, so enjoyed a lot of performances there. Yeah. But right now it's kind of people are just hanging out on Zoom and just having fun.
Yeah, since we have like such a good drama school, it also is like a really good opportunity to be able to watch the drama productions because they're free for students or like really cheap for students. And getting to see the people that are like in the future going to be on Broadway or on TV is really cool because you get to kind of be like, oh, I saw them before they got discovered and stuff like that. So it's definitely a unique thing to CMU to have that.
Awesome, thanks. So we've got a few questions popping into the chat now. The first one was just about how long you've been on the team, and Harleen did a nice job of replying 2.5 years, Maggie 2 years, and Maya almost a full year. So once we have students working on the project, we tend to keep them around as long as they're willing to continue to dedicate time to the work. So a few more questions coming in. How do you guys come up with the exercises that are throughout our curriculum?
I haven't been on content creation in a little while, so I feel like Maya and Maggie might have a bit more to say about this. But it's definitely comes to the point where first you think about what concept you're trying to teach. So once you know what the concept that you're trying to teach is, we try to come up with some fun little like ideas. Like obviously it definitely takes a lot of creativity to come up with exercises. So huge props to the content team for coming up with some of those, like Puffy Penguin. I could never. And so it starts with the concept of what do you want to teach? Like, oh, okay, I'm trying to teach lists. Then the next step is, okay, what is the exact thing about lists that you're trying to teach? In what way do we want to show this, and how can we connect it to the graphics? And you want to try and do something different than what's already there in the other exercises in that set. And because we also have like level 1 difficulties versus level 2 or level 3, we also have to consider like how difficult we want to make the exercise. Then normally there's a couple rounds of kind of development in the process. So first the content creator will create like a first draft of some idea, and then the content team will peer review each other's as well as Elliot reviewing the content. And then in the next step, they revise that, and then we write it up all nice, and we decide if we're going to include it in the curriculum or not. But yeah, Maya and Maggie can probably give a little bit more into the creative process that goes into creating an exercise.
I could go next. So like Harley really sum up the process really well, and usually behind one exercise there are like a lot of rounds of iterations, and you need to like edit and try to revise, like the exercise so that it's more like user friendly and it's like more interesting. And I think a lot of times like Carlin said, we usually like try to decide first what the exercise is going to be made for, like what concept you're teaching. And usually I would have like a brainstorm session, like just with myself, and just write down a few like interesting like ideas and like what might be interesting, like, you know, what animal or what like setting I want this exercise to be, and just like try to like create that and like do more revision and iteration so that it appears nice.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Obviously, first thinking about what concept is teaching, and it's like for example, if you have lists, like thinking about what lists are useful for, and how you can like manipulate that like usefulness and put it into like a real world scenario or something that's like related to like nature or like I don't know. I just have a lot of trouble with like the creative side, and I used to be like, okay, like I know how to write the code, but like how do I make this look nice, and how do I make it like so I think something that Elliot kind of helped me with at least was like, if you like kind of look around you and just like look at like the things around you, like, you know, go like stand outside and like look at things on the street and like that, and somehow connecting like computer science concepts to that is what's helped me like make exercises, I guess. So yeah, it's been really fun. And yeah, a lot of rounds of critiquing and feedback sessions with other people on the team is super helpful. And then we decide if we want to have it in the curriculum.
Cool, thanks. So next question is, why were you all interested in studying computer science?
Yeah, this is a really good question. It's kind of like how it all began, kind of the thing. When I was a senior in high school, I took AP Computer Science, and my math teacher had been hounding me to take it since I was a freshman because he thought that I would really like it, and I was afraid to take it because it was notoriously seen as hard. And so I was kind of afraid to take it, but I ended up taking it, and I really liked the way that you approach a problem, and there's just a lot of problem solving involved. It's not just bashing a bunch of keys to make a program work. It's thinking about what's happening in the program. It's reasoning about how to solve that problem. And I think that it's just such a good skill to have, even if you weren't in computer science. It's just such a great skill to have that I was really excited to kind of expand on that. And I was also really interested in linguistics as well. And when I saw that CMU had language technologies, I kind of saw that there was an intersection of two things I really liked, which meant that I really thought that computer science would be good for me. Also, I've always just really liked math and science, and so I kind of knew that I was going to go the STEM route. But then once I saw computer science, I kind of knew that that was what I wanted to do. I also definitely thought about majoring in math and other things as well. But I ended up deciding to go with computer science because I did really just like the way the thinking was made during that kind of process.
Yeah, cool. I could go. So for me, I think, I mean, I came into college as a math major, and even in high school, I think math was definitely my favorite subject. So I kind of knew that I wanted to do something with math, but I didn't know what. Then when I came into college, I decided in the spring of my freshman year to take an intro to Python course. And that like really changed my perspective. I used to think of computer science as like this super daunting, super scary thing. And like, yes, the class was hard, definitely, but it really, over time, I think I kind of learned how to like connect like math concepts to like computer science, and that really helped me because I was like, this is so cool. This is like applied math. This is like actually like if you like think about a CS problem, you think about it in like a mathy way. It's like just really fun to like code it up and see like results and see, you know, stuff like happen in front of you. So yeah, that's kind of how I've gotten involved in computer science, and I'm still a math major, but I've definitely done a lot of like CS on the side, which has been very fun.
Yeah, so I think when I was in high school, I didn't really know much about CS, and my high school didn't offer like a CS course. I was doing International Baccalaureate IB instead of AP. But at the time, I was really interested in neuroscience and biology in general, and I kind of realized like there are so many complicated systems in your body, and the problems are just so big that the information or the data set is just so big that I don't think any human would be able to process it. So then I was like, yeah, maybe it is kind of inevitable that I should learn, this tool, the CS, to help me with biological problems. And then so like I basically applied to computational biology at CMU. And it's been really, really fun. At first, like Maya said, it might be a little bit daunting. I didn't really like math that much in high school, but like I definitely like kind of really love it right now, because I think like when you see it has like real life connection to what is going on, you kind of have like, you're like, okay, this subject is definitely relevant. It's more interesting than it is before when it's just on paper. Yeah.
Cool, thanks guys. Bouncing back to talking about working on the project. So what's the most challenging part, in your opinion, working on the team?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of hard it's not really a hard thing to be on the team. It's definitely really fun to be on the team. But I would say one challenge is definitely time management, because we are full-time students, but working on CS Academy is so fun and so impactful and just so rewarding that sometimes I can kind of push my homework aside and be like, well, I could just keep working on CS Academy and do my homework later. Which becomes a little bit of a problem. But Aaron and everyone are super supportive and make sure that we're on top of our schoolwork as well, and are always checking in to make sure that we're not doing too much, to make sure that we're not drowning in too much work or anything like that. But I would say like that's the main challenge, I would say, of working on CS Academy.
Yeah, for me too, definitely like time management and just the fact that, working on exercises and kind of doing that stuff, it's definitely like super rewarding and just it's super cool and interesting. And a lot of times, the coursework, some of my coursework isn't super interesting. So it's just hard to, just like stay on track. Yeah, but, and I think for me also being on the content creation team, especially like at the start, I found it really hard to like think in a more, I guess, creative / artsy way from a graphical perspective. So I think that's been like my main challenge. But I've worked on that and I've tried, and I'm still trying and learning to get better at that aspect. So yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I would also say like I don't feel there are a lot of challenges. Yes, like sometimes time management sort of gets in the way, and also it could be hard creating content, because sometimes I guess you just don't know what you should do for an exercise, or you don't have a good idea. But I think overall, because like you have so many like other students working with you and on the team, so I feel like I always feel I'm well supported on the team. So I don't think like it doesn't really come into my mind like this is particularly hard, like working on CS Academy. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that a lot of our team members will talk about in the exercise creation process is just coming up with that idea of something that is going to teach this concept, be age level appropriate and background appropriate, and also interesting to high school students. And I think that's one of the things that our student team spends the most time thinking about when they're working on exercises. But one thing I'll say about our team in general, being a teacher prior to working on this project, this is the first time that I've had a group of students that are all so motivated and so dedicated to everything that they do, that I feel like I spend a whole lot of time making sure they're not pouring too much of themselves into all of their work. So it's definitely a different teaching and mentoring relationship that I have, but it's very enjoyable. The next question that came through says, does CMU CS Academy do any work to help decrease the digital divide in our world today? I'd like you all to talk about this too, but I'll touch base on that a little bit. So that's actually a key reason why we exist. CS Academy is a free resource and we provide free professional development. It's an outreach project out of the university because we want to help decrease the digital divide in our world, especially looking at it from a CS perspective. We want all students, regardless of where they're coming from, to have the opportunity to get exposure to CS education. Our goal is not to make everyone want to be a computer scientist. Our goal is to give everyone the skills and tools to use programming and apply it to subjects and topics that they're interested in. So we don't expect every student that takes the CS Academy curriculum to become the next greatest computer scientist, but we do hope that you all come up with really interesting ways to use it and apply it to things that you're interested in.
Yeah, it's definitely great to be working on CS Academy because we are doing a lot to kind of decrease that digital divide, like Erin said. Like even in my own high school, there was a large portion of the school had no access to a computer in their home or things like that. And we were a school. Is it called Title I school? Yeah, we were a Title I school, and very few people were taking the one CS course that we had. But since CS Academy actually started, my high school started using it, and now a huge portion of the school are now taking that class. Even my own sister is taking it, who previously was like, oh no, CS scary, like that's hard. It kind of gave her access to be able to do it in a school environment without it being an intense AP course. So I think it's really great to have this. And we're expanding all over the world, making sure that we can kind of bring it to more people.
Yeah, definitely. It's super cool. And I think that the aspect of the fact that, CS Academy is, trying to bridge that gap between, high school and college, and, the fact that it's completely free. I think for me, those were some key reasons as to why I even wanted to be on the team in the first place, which is really amazing. In my high school, we were never offered computer science as a subject, and then when I came to college, and then I was like, okay, like there's this project where we're working on actually developing a high school curriculum that's completely free. Wait, that's like super cool, and that really like I guess connects with me. So yeah, I think the work we're doing is pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think like we really put a lot of emphasis on accessibility of our content. And also, I think it's a great way for people to sort of like get intro into CS because like Maya and Harleen said, when you first, hear about CS, maybe it's like this very daunting, very big, kind of like very difficult subject that involves a lot of math, a lot of crazy stuff. But like once you see it, actually very interesting and you can do it in such a creative way. I think students sort of like kind of have a more natural and like a more pleasant, I guess, introduction to CS. And I think that's really important.
Awesome, thanks. So have you found that your studies in computer science have translated into your other maybe unrelated classes? And how important is it knowing coding when looking to future career opportunities for all of you?
Yeah, so as a CS major, even though I am a computer science major, I still have to take a lot of classes in humanities and science and stuff like that. And especially at CMU, the idea of interdisciplinary is so huge here. So every single time that you're taking a class that may not be at all related to your major, there's always a way to connect that to your major in some way. And your professors in that class normally know about every possible connection that there exists, and they'll tell you about that connection, and they'll be like, you know what, we're going to put this as part of the class, and now you're going to learn this connection. Like I took a cognitive psychology class, and then the teacher started talking about how they can use cognitive psychology to do a bunch of stuff for computer science. And I was just like, wait, what? This is just supposed to be a humanities class. Now I'm learning about how it connects to my own major. That's crazy. And so it's definitely really cool to be able to have that kind of interdisciplinary, like I've taken a lot of linguistics classes and I've taken a lot of CS classes, and I've also taken language technology classes, but they all kind of fit together in different pieces. So I find it really cool to have that interdisciplinary. In terms of coding for future career opportunities, I would say it's less so important to know how to code and more how to approach any sort of computing problem. So definitely it's good to take like one CS class at least, even if you're not interested in it. And most universities now do require that you take a CS class. So that's always really good to have under your belt. And obviously knowing different programming languages is never going to hurt you in the job seeking process. as a non-CS major, you can definitely be able to use those CS skills in your job because technology is the future. A lot of people now who didn't have any reason to be learning how to code are now learning how to code in their jobs, even if it wasn't necessarily originally related to computer science. Like my older sister is trying to be an elementary school teacher, and part of her program, she has to take a CS class because who knows if in the future elementary school kids will be doing something relating to like computer science thinking. So that kind of thing is like really interesting to see. So it's definitely important to take a computer science class. It's not necessarily required that you take all of them or that you be a CS major to be impactful in the world, but I think it's definitely important to have that kind of foundation before going into the job world, regardless of your job.
Yeah, that's so true. So for me, I mean, being a math major, there's definitely like a lot of connections that I can make, across math and CS. And for me, it's like my mathematical, I guess, problem solving techniques have kind of translated into my CS classes, and like also like the stuff that I take away from my CS classes has like helped me in math, which has been very cool. And I think like also about like how important it is for the future. Like it's definitely true that it's growing, and it's becoming, I feel, more it's more and more common for like people in majors maybe unrelated to STEM to also take CS classes. Like I have a friend who's like doing law and she's taking like a bunch of CS classes, and I'm just like, okay, cool, why? It's super cool. And yeah, I definitely think it's just like Harleen said, it's not just about like knowing how to code and like learning that syntax, but it's a lot about that like the problem solving like skills that you gain along the way, like approaching a problem and thinking about it in a very like step-by-step algorithmic like process. I think that that's pretty important in today's world.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I think so, like in, I guess, just daily life or in other subjects, there will always be like scenarios where you need to solve problems or you need to identify problems and come up with your own solutions. So I think like, studying CS or CS related major is really just like teaching you to think like a computer scientist, where you just like formulate your questions and find a very feasible way of approaching them or solving them. And also I think like since technology and computers and internet is so big in our life, I think like knowing more CS is sort of like knowing more about the world, which is I think in itself pretty cool. And you sort of like understand, oh, this is how things are working. And I think that's very attractive in itself. And I definitely think there are more and more like fields and I guess disciplines that sort of wish like they have more like CS people or like CS related people and working in it, because we're generating so much data every single day, and it will be nice to be able to mine them or be able to sort of infer new information from the things we already have. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks guys. What's your advice to new CS students and how we should approach the CMU exercises or learning coding information?
This is definitely a really good question to ask because a lot of people don't really know how to get started because it can seem really daunting no matter how the material is being presented to you. I would definitely say to take it slow. Don't be afraid to like ask a lot of questions to your teacher if you're in a classroom, or even like look online for resources. There's a lot of places where you can kind of ask questions and get answers from students and other people that are working on it, but definitely taking it slow is a really good idea. I would say specifically for CMU exercises, make sure you're reading those notes. We know that a lot of students like to kind of skim the notes because they don't want to read them as much. So definitely reading those notes is a really good idea because they are a really great resource. And practice is a really big part of computer science. Like even as a senior, when you're applying to jobs, you have to do a bunch of practice problems because you have to get yourself in that mindset. You have to do a lot of practice. So even through CS Academy, like doing as many of the exercises as you can, redoing an exercise possibly because maybe you didn't feel super confident about it, maybe you want to go back and redo it. That's a really good idea. but just the idea of wrapping your head around problem solving is just super big. Because when you see a new problem, you kind of have to learn how to find approaches to it. So rather than just trying to get the answer, you should try to develop the skill of learning how to approach the problem. Because like, even if I open up a random CS Academy exercise, I'm not going to get the answer in like 2 seconds. Like, even though I know Python, that's not how it works. I have to read the problem. I have to look at the test cases. I have to see what's already there and then slowly start approaching the problem and figuring out what things need to be done in order to solve it. So I would say like that's a huge part of learning CS at the beginning, is making sure that you understand how to approach problems rather than just always solving them. Like getting those exercises right on the first try, that's great, but not necessarily like needed. Like you could take 5 tries and that would be just as valuable as getting it on the first try. Honestly, it might even be more valuable because you got to see that iterative process of how you got to the answer, and that's going to help you in the next exercises that you do.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think, I mean, obviously this varies from person to person, but for for me, in terms of, getting into CS, there's always every time I take a new CS class, there's always this like steep learning curve in like the first couple of weeks, and I'm just like, what is going on? And then like it slowly like works itself out. So I think honestly, like spending time, like yes, focusing on the syntax and focusing on that stuff is important too. But once you kind of figure out and you can like maybe express and like talk to yourself about like how you want to go about a problem first and then learn how to translate those thoughts onto code, that's like a good process to have. And I think that's also just kind of a good way of approaching problems in general, just like seeing okay, what are the things that I need? What's my input supposed to be? What's my output supposed to be? What do I want to show up on the canvas? Like what do I want to see? Having that like thought process is pretty imperative right before you start to code. And honestly, the syntax and all of that just like comes along the way. Like after you do a couple of exercises and like go through a couple of units, you're like, okay, I got this. I know how to declare a variable. That's fun. So yeah, I guess honestly, just thinking about kind of the overarching concept of what you wanna do, like what the outcome of the problem should be, is a pretty good process to have, and like be patient in practice, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I think understanding a problem on a very higher level is really important. Like you probably like want to talk to yourself like what this program is doing like in English before you even start to code. And I think the other thing is like I see coding or CS just as like a communication task. Like you are communicating your idea to the machine so that the machine will do whatever you're telling it to do. And also you're communicating with, your peers, like, this, like you can be like, this is my code and this code does A, B, and C. It's like just constantly trying to, I guess, make your ideas very clear and be able to like communicate it to like different people and different machines. I think really it is starts off to be like that. Like you don't have to just like dive head into like, okay, I'm just gonna sit there and code. And like I think being able to understand the high level picture is like a really big thing. Yeah.
And learning to read through existing code is also a really good skill, especially in like real world jobs. Like you're not given a fresh canvas and told to code. You're given like thousands of lines of code and they're like, implement this new thing. So you really have to learn how to like read the code. So looking at CS Academy's exercises, there's a lot of code that's already there. Making sure that you understand how that's factoring into the problem is also a really good idea and is really good for setting up those kind of problem solving skills as well.
Thanks, guys. Harleen, you touched on this a little bit, and I think it would be interesting to elaborate on. I know since you're a senior, you've been going through this a lot recently, but just the interview process for a software engineer, if you could go through kind of the type of things that you have to do when you're being interviewed, I think that would be interesting for classrooms too.
Yeah. So when applying for both internships and full-time software engineering roles, the process is about the same, maybe longer for full-time. But usually you have a first round interview that could be a coding challenge, which is where they kind of send you a link to a website where there's a question that you have to do and you have to find the answer. A lot of these questions are very like practical in the sense that it will be like, oh, you're given this list, find three numbers in the list that sum to this number and make it fast, stuff like that. So they always like follow along the same kind of like path, but they're always very different, so you have to do a lot of practice. After that kind of first round, you may have a virtual interview, which is a 45-minute to an hour technical interview with a software engineer that works at the company. And then you kind of reason about certain questions. You may get through multiple questions, and you also get to talk a little bit about yourself as well. And then there might be even another round of technical interviews. These interviews can go up to like 3 or 4 rounds. Normally the final round is an all-day event. Effectively, you have about 4 or 5 interviews in that day. I luckily did not have to do that since I took a return offer, but people have to do it for the entire day. And you have both technical interviews as well as behavioral interviews. So I would say like a lot of people think like, oh, if I'm studying for a CS interview, I don't have to think about behavioral. But I think that it is the behavioral portion of the interviews where I was really able to shine. And so I definitely think that that's why I have my current job. And I definitely think it's still important to know that. But the technical interview process can be pretty daunting at first, but there's so many resources online to kind of like study for those kinds of things. And it makes it a lot easier to kind of control and be able to kind of go through that process. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Harleen. The next question that we have is, do you think that having knowledge in CS will be beneficial in going about problems in the real world? Maggie, maybe you can start since you're applying CS to biology so much. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. So I think actually from my own experience, last summer I was working on a research team for a oceanography professor. So she studies underwater like lava and eruption, and so it's actually like at first I was like, but I don't really know about lava and all those different rocks. What can I do here? But basically, the thing was, there were a lot of like images taken for like lava and rocks, and people want to sort of like be able to differentiate what is this, is this type of lava or that type of lava, and do some analysis on that. And so but like, if you have to manually sketch the contour of the rocks, it will be really, really hard and really tiring. Believe me, I tried. So during the summer, I was like trying to come up with a way that I can basically differentiate like different types of rocks like when given an image. So I also just have to learn about like image processing and all those things on the spot, because I didn't have like a lot of experience. But I definitely like have that like kind of, okay, so first I need to formulate my question, how will I be able to approach this? And basically I was like, okay, so if something is above some threshold, then I classify it as this type of rock. If it's like another thing, I'll classify it as another type of rock. And so, and also like it's, just like solving any problem or like designing an exercise, it takes a lot of iteration. The first time it didn't really work out. So I basically went back to the drawing board and did it again. I think, similar things also happen for like, computational biology and many other sciences, I'd say. And for summer, I also was TAing for a pre-college program that teaches, it's actually from CMU. It's a computational biology pre-college program. And we were sort of like doing a genome assembler, like that piece is like genomic information together, and we were able to piece like a COVID-19 kind of genome together. It was really cool seeing your data actually fit the real data. So like definitely I think CS just like you can apply it like wherever, I'd say, like yeah.
Thanks, Maggie. Harleen or Maya, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, like just like Maggie said, like there's just so many applications, especially because the world is becoming so like data driven, that there's just so many things that you can do. Like even like for instance, Erin is a program manager for CMU CS Academy. She's not sitting down every day coding or doing anything like that, but she still took a computer science course in order for her to feel like technically adept to understanding the problems that we go through at CS Academy. So even though she doesn't have to specifically work on coding, because she's supporting a team that is working on things like that, she was able to take that class and directly apply it and use the fact that she's been a teacher already to combine those skills in order to be the program manager and help us through our problems. Like she gives a lot of really great feedback on our exercises and stuff. And she doesn't have a CS degree. Like it takes very little kind of exposure to CS to be able to kind of have an impact in CS. Yes, Erin, heart you too. So there's a lot of things that you can do with just taking even one class in CS, like taking CS 1A and CS 1B in CS Academy. That could prepare you for a lot of different things. You could end up in college taking a CS course and people will be like, oh, Python's so hard. And you'll be like, well, I already took it, so I know what I'm doing. And so, yeah, you can just kind of like flip your hair and stunt on them. Like you can kind of show off. And that's really exciting. So definitely feel like you can do anything you want with CS. Even if you don't go like into actual CS, like even if you're not in STEM, like even if you don't do biology, like I know someone who's a linguistics major who takes a lot of CS classes and he uses CS to automate certain processes that he's doing in linguistics. And like that's not even necessarily doing like language technologies, he's just actually doing like linguistic analysis and using coding to help him in that. And that's really cool. Like he's pursuing a PhD in linguistics, but taking CS as part of that PhD. And so that just like shows how like even if it's not STEM, you can still apply CS to other fields.
Thanks, Harleen.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize that I was muted. Yeah, I think it's definitely super relevant in the real world, especially today. Things are like changing a lot. And tech is like at the forefront of a lot of stuff. And yeah, definitely the world is like super data driven. And I think there are a lot of really, really like I feel like those areas are being discovered right now, but there are a lot of areas in the world that like haven't really been touched by tech and touched by CS, and that's happening like right now. Like I have a friend who's like currently working on making like the AI for like drones that help farmers in India like plot their like fields and stuff like that, which is very cool. So I think that there's like so many aspects of the world in which like CS is beneficial and is impactful, and that's why I think that it is like an interesting area to be exposed to, even if you don't think that you're gonna like go ahead in it and you don't think that like it's gonna necessarily be your major. But it's just nice to like have a little bit of that exposure and kind of, you know, understand what CS problem solving looks like, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, and I can touch base a little bit more too on what Harleen was talking about with me. So as an educator, it was I was so drawn to teaching CS because students are very excited about it, especially little students. So I was teaching K-8. We had a ton of fun. We built robots. We talked about future cities with driverless cars. We had a whole bunch of fun in that room. And knowing that you're teaching something that's so relevant was really, really interesting to me. And now working for CS Academy, what Harleen was saying is so true. I'm probably the least technical on our staff, but I pair that knowledge with my knowledge of classrooms and knowledge of learning and pedagogy techniques, and I'm able to really provide a nice kind of like mesh in between our technical staff and what we're doing for schools. So I think that's one of the things to really keep in mind if you're taking a CS course and you're not sure you're totally into it. Don't feel like you have to become a computer scientist in order to do something meaningful with these skills that you're building. Having this as a tool in your pocket is always going to be valuable because you're going to look at situations and problems differently. where when you don't understand how computers are working or how a site is built, you might you might think, oh, well, that's not possible. But with a little bit of knowledge of how programming works, oh yeah, that's just a simple conditional if statement. That's all that needs to be added. That's easy peasy. So yeah, so keep that in mind when you're studying CS. It does not have to be the end all be all for you, but you can apply it in so many fun and interesting ways. I think my favorite project that I've seen at CMU was a student that is a design student working on like fashion projects that made these really intricate dresses that I think it was like based off of a person's mood, the colors would change, and she did all of that with CS. So it really opens up your eyes to a world of really innovative things that you can do that you might not otherwise think that way if you don't have a programming or CS background. I think to wrap up this session, I'd like to just ask you all to talk about thinking about yourselves as high school students. What is the one thing that you wish you had known at that time? Just a little piece of advice to wrap things up today.
I would say one piece of advice that I wish I knew in high school is that it's okay to not know. I think a lot of times high schoolers are really nervous because they're applying to college and they're like, I'm setting in stone what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And that is really scary because you're 18 years old. Like, even as a 21-year-old, I'm scared because I've solidified what I'm doing for the rest of my life, right? But no, that's not the case. There's so many opportunities to change what you're doing. Even in college, if you decide going into college, like, oh yeah, actually, I'm going to try and study computer science, but you end up finding a different passion while in college, you can very easily change that. Like, even within CMU, the number of people who like change majors is like really high because people change their mind, and that's okay. It's also okay to go into college undecided. You don't have to have made a decision when you apply as well. And when you're in high school, don't be so preoccupied with what classes can I take that will look good for college. Like, I know it's really easy to get stuck up in that, and I know I did too. But it can be kind of sad because then you get to college and now you have the chance to take anything you want, and you're like, well, I never did that in high school, so I don't even know what I want. And so being able to like admit to yourself, like, okay, I don't know what I want to do, that's okay, is really big as a high schooler, because then when you go into college, it kind of gives you the flexibility to try a bunch of different things, and kind of see what you are passionate about and maybe combining things in a way that other people haven't combined it before. A lot of people create their own majors too. Like, there's really a lot of different things that you can do in college. It's not just, will I become a computer scientist or will I do like liberal arts? Like, it's not like that. There's so many different things that you can do. Like, Maya's a math major, but she's studying a lot of computer science. She found that intersection that she really enjoyed, and that's great. And Maggie has computational biology. Like, there's so many different intersections of passions that you can kind of take, especially in college. So definitely just, it's okay to not know what you want to do.
Yeah, I like totally relate to the not knowing what you want to do, because I think by the time like you're like a senior in high school, I feel like you kind of put this expectation on yourself, and also like you feel it externally that everyone kind of has stuff figured out and they kind of like know what they want. I don't think that like even now I completely know like what I want to do, and I think like that's completely fine. I mean, you go through high school and you go through college, and I guess just like stick to the things that interest you, stick to the things that you think you could potentially be passionate about, try out different things, get involved. It's kind of vague, but I guess just like explore areas. I mean, this is like your time to like seriously explore and, you know, experience you know, different, you know, different areas of whether that's academic or not. And yeah, and like always, as always, like when you come into college, like Harleen said, there's just so many opportunities for you to, you know, you can come in undecided and decide your major, or you can just like remain undecided until you're like a junior, or you can, I mean, there's just like so many possibilities and like, you know, things that you can get into. So don't like put that pressure on yourself to like know like what the rest of your life is going to be, because you know you're probably not going to know that unless you do, which is cool. But if you don't, then it's fine.
That's a really good point. To actually add on to that, I think it's also okay that you feel you're not completely comfortable or like you think you're not very good at something, and just keep an open mind, because just from my personal experience, I wasn't so great at math. And I was like, no, I'm not going to take any more math classes in college because, like, you know, I have a choice now. I don't want to take any more math. But actually, I think senior year high school, I got to take like discrete mathematics, and I was like, oh my God, it's actually really fun. And now that, you know, I'm in college, I took more classes and sort of like see, oh, these are like, there are so many different fields about mathematics. It's not just, you know, calculus and trigonometry. There are so many fun things out there. And just, I think to keep an open mind and do not say that, you know, like, I can't do this now, so like I will never do it. Like maybe it will become fun, maybe, you know, things will change. So like I think you definitely changed, like I definitely changed from, you know, high school to college, like, you know, even from like freshman to now. So like just keep an open mind and just, you know, try what you can and just have fun. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you all so much. I think we're going to wrap up a few minutes early today, unless someone else wants to add a new question to the chat. We'll give it a minute or two.
Got to play some Jeopardy music in the background.
All right, so just as a reminder, or for people that are watching this later, we will continue to have live sessions all week. So all Eastern Standard Time, 9:30, 1:30, and 5:30. And we hope to see you all again. Thank you so much for joining us today.